guys, and welcome back. Welcome back to Dylan's Little Hobbies. And in today's video, I am going to be reviewing Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 5, 6, 7, and 8. This arc, we are going to be reviewing this Star Wars The Clone Wars arc. The only name I can come up for this arc is Ahsoka is back. The Ahsoka back arc. Yes, we are going to be reviewing this arc. Now, before I get into it, I simply want to say this. Every single episode, every single second, millisecond of this season, I have a great big grin on my face. I have just a great big grin on my face seeing my childhood Star Wars back in action, because this is what I really grew up with, right? I really grew up on Star Wars The Clone Wars, and I just absolutely love the fact that Star Wars The Clone Wars is back. But with that said, I do have to admit this. I would have been happy with just about anything, and now looking at what we do have, I would have been happy with just about anything else extra. In fact, to be honest with you, I kind of wish that they would extend the show, right? I kind of wish we would have 12 plus more episodes, a couple more arcs, maybe extend it even further than that, that there's gotta be something that we haven't seen, I would just love more Star Wars Clone Wars. I really, really would. But with that said, I am happy with what we got. I really am happy with what we got. However, let's go ahead and get into this review now that I've said that. The fact is, I kind of expected something a little bit more flashy and grand for the entrance of Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano, not only have we not seen her in a long, long time, but we haven't seen young Ahsoka Tano around in a long, long time. And in episode 5, we just have her show up. Nothing big and grand goes on, We go on a little bit of adventure with her. That's about it. It wasn't big and grand, but you know what? Really, I feel like if you just went from season 5, 6, 7, if you just kept watching the show forward, I really do get the feeling that nothing of these episodes change. They don't feel different. It just goes straight to the next arc. You won't have this feeling of, we need this big, grand entrance, for Ahsoka Tano that we haven't seen in a long time. If you just went right into it. And that's why I actually like watching a YouTuber called Hello Greedo. Shout out to him. Love his videos. He does a Star Wars The Clone Wars review. And the funny fact is, he doesn't have nostalgia like I do for Star Wars The Clone Wars. So when he does his videos, he talks about how none of these episodes feel different from what came before, They just go straight into it, and they feel totally awesome. I totally love it. But I do feel like, and it might be just my nostalgia, I do feel like it is different. I do feel like there should have been some grand entrance for Ahsoka Tano, some great and then powerful story for this arc. Especially because it's like the end of the series. This is the final arc. And while the Bad Batch arc was fantastic, and I absolutely loved it, I think it was a great entrance into the season, this middle arc that we have here is really lackluster for me. Even though I love Ahsoka Tano and I have a big grin on my face watching every episode, it is a little lackluster for me, and that's kind of weird. But according to, I'm watching Hello Greedo, I love his videos. These episodes don't feel different from anything that came before it. And I feel like if I just went and watched season 5, 6, 7, right back to back, this would won't even stand out this arc. In fact, there's a lot of arcs that I can think about that don't really stand out but are great arcs in their own case, and so is this one. It's just not as grand as you think it would be. It's a little lackluster, but I still love it. So let's go ahead, let's stop wasting time, let's actually start talking about these episodes, shall we? Now, episode 5 and 6, I don't have much to talk about here. Basically, we have Ahsoka Tano, she's on a bike and she ends up crashing. I'm just going to do a short little summary of the episodes here. She ends up crashing, she ends up meeting these two sisters who, Rafa and I can't even remember the name of the other one. She was, of course, getting some help with her bike. Of course, I can't remember who, I think it was Rafa, who was trying to convince her to stay, to give her money to pay for the bike, and she just needed the money so she could fix her ship. And we kind of learn about her dreams, we kind of get introduced to these characters. And what can I say about these two new characters? What can I say about these two sisters? You know, based on episode 5 and 6, not interesting. I didn't get attached to any of these characters until episode 7, and I really enjoyed them in episode 8. But before that, I just didn't get attached to them. I didn't hate them, but they weren't standing out to me. But then again, when you watch a Clone Wars arc, none of the characters stand out to you until, like, the end of the arc or end of the episode, you know? So it doesn't bother me. But basically, episode 5 is all about Ahsoka Tano meeting them, introduction to him. One of the sisters has a job with a robot. Turns out the robots are demolition droids. They go crazy and almost kill everyone. I'm actually really happy to see that Ahsoka Tano in this episode, she is trying to distance herself from the Jedi. She doesn't know where to do and what to do next, where to go next. So she doesn't want to use the Force, you can kind of tell. And she doesn't use the Force, even though she could. She doesn't make it just easy on herself, you know? She only uses the Force when absolutely necessary. And I like her little comments about, like, her coming from Skywalker Academy and she was trained in martial arts and stuff like that. She doesn't want to say that she's a Jedi, of course. We find out later on in the they find that out later on in the arc. Now, the next episode, episode 6, so one of the sisters, the older sister, has another job. She doesn't really want to say what it is. She has a pilot that backed out on her, and so she needed to go to, I believe the little sister is named Rafa. I could be wrong about that. But she goes to the little sister and says, hey, we need your ship to fly on this job. They go. Ahsoka goes with them to keep them out of trouble. And this job ends up being a spice run. Well, they have an argument, and the little sister, Rafa, actually ends up dropping the spice in hyperspace. Worst idea you could ever do, because we're giving that to the Pikes. We're giving that to gangsters. You are running spice for gangsters. Now you got no spice to pay them, and at first their plan is to trick them. Doesn't really work out that way, and so they get captured. Okay, that's it for episode 6. The story really does get interesting in episode 7 because we find out the sisters' backstory. It turns out that their backstory ends up being the fact that the reason why they don't like Jedi and the reason why they're always on their own and they always have like this saying, keep to themselves, because it's just those two keep to themselves. They'll be alright. They're the only ones that make themselves alright. It turns out that back in season 1, when Zero escaped, and I like the fact that they pulled this back into it, kind of connects the whole story together, right? Zero, from season 1, what happened is he escaped, and Luminara, a Jedi, went after it. And unfortunately, bounty hunters, Cad Bane, who was trying to help him escape, made a platform blow up made a ship blow up, and it was going to land onto a platform. A Jedi, Luminara, ended up saving a whole bunch of people and crashed into the side of the wall. The side of the wall where, unfortunately, these two, their parents, lived. And they crashed into them, and unfortunately they died, and Luminara just went up to them and said, "I'm sorry, the Force will be with you, goodbye." Very, very cold. And it's just kind of interesting here, and this is kind of the way I feel. I feel like if Obi-Wan Kenobi was the one who did that, he's a wise old gentleman, so I feel like he would have maybe said something else to these two to make him feel a little bit better about the Jedi, and that this terrible sacrifice for them, the thing of the few, but survival of the many, the sacrifice of their parents was not in vain. Not that they willingly sacrificed themselves, but you know what I mean? And I kind of feel like if Ahsoka Tano was there, she could have probably made them feel better too. And I feel like if it was Anakin Skywalker doesn't hide his grief, He doesn't hide his expression. So I feel like if it was Anakin Skywalker who told them about that, the look on his face would probably made the two feel more for it. Instead, Luminara, the coldest Jedi you could ever meet, said, "The Force will be with you. Goodbye." And that's why they hate the Jedi, because the Jedi, to them, aren't heroes. I really liked their backstory. As for the rest of the episode, it was just them escaping and then getting recaptured again. However, we did find out that the Mandalorians are in fact on their planet. We found out that the Mandalorians are on the Pike planet. It happens to be Bo-Katan. I wonder why. And then we get to the new episode. We get to episode 8 review. Oh boy. Strap yourselves in because I got a lot more to say. So Ahsoka Tano says, "I have an idea." And they just have to trust her. They go to the Pikes, and Ahsoka Tano acts like she's betraying them, that she's sending them on to go find some spice, and that she'll sit right here until they get back, and then the Pikes can kill them, and she can just have her money and walk away. That's her plan, And it kind of works. They go on their own way, and Ahsoka Tano is captured. She's the only one who was captured. And the twins, especially the older one, remembers that and can't believe that someone like her, an outsider, would do that for their family. So she decides to go steal some more spice, great idea, and go save Ahsoka Tano. And she does. And Ahsoka Tano finds out that they are actually working for Darth Maul, the Pikes. We, of course, know this. And this, of course, all leads into the next arc, obviously. So, what happens then is she is found out. She is found out to be a Jedi. She is captured by the Pikes again. The sisters arrive with the spice. They trade for it. But it turns out that the sisters figure out that she's a Jedi because the Pikes tell her. And then they go on to their own crazy fun journey of escape. You know, I was kind of surprised that the Mandalorians, Bo-Katan, didn't end up helping them escape, but they did follow them to their planet, and then back to Coruscant, came out of the darkness and said, hey, we have a fellow enemy, let's work together. Ahsoka Tano decides to go with them. But before that, one thing that I really, really liked, it was just so surprising and so funny to me. Ahsoka Tano says, yes, I was a Jedi, but I left. And they were both like, you can do that? I laughed at that moment. That was great. That was great. And of course, it's super complicated. They don't want to go into the whole story arc again. But Ahsoka has made friends out of these two. And what I really, really like is that the older sister not only apologizes for the way she's been acting, but then she says, you do act like a Jedi. Or at least the way I think Jedi are supposed to act like. You know, and that's great because the Jedi, they've lost their ways, right? But Ahsoka Tano is the one that's always good. The one, she might not think herself as a Jedi, but she's what they're supposed to be. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I cannot wait to see the next arc and see more of Ahsoka Tano. Now, I also plan to do another video on, I think it's going to come out either Wednesday or Thursday, and it's going to talk about the 5 things you need to know before watching the last arc of Star Wars The Clone Wars. Look out for that video, but without further ado, this arc was a little lackluster, but I did enjoy it. I actually ended up liking the characters at the end, but that's about it. There's not much more I can really talk about. It was a fun little ride, fun little arc. And of course, Ahsoka Tano is back. It's fun to see her kick butt again and just hear her voice again. It's just great. Of course, this arc kind of shows Ahsoka Tano's mindset going into the last arc, which is also great to see because she doesn't know what to do. She is a little bit against the Jedi now, so it's just great to see the way she thinks now. With that said, that is it. Thank you guys for watching, and I am out. Bye.